Have you ever seen anything like this? Or maybe this? If so, you may have wondered, how can something so beautiful, something so fragile, sprout from something so harsh and stark? Well, you know, I really don't have the answer to that question, but what I do know is that the seed from which this beautiful flower sprouted found its way to that very place. And rather than shriveling up and dying, it threw down very deep roots, and from there thrived in place. So there you have it, a beautiful flower, the sight of which may give us some modicum of happiness. And that's what I want to talk about with you today, about how happiness, like this flower, can maybe be found in some of the most unexpected of places. You know, I learned long ago that happiness is not something that you should pursue, or that happiness is not something that you chase, but that happiness is something that will come to you, that you can attract. If you embrace a life lived with meaning, one with strong relationships, one with time for reflection, expressions of gratitude, and one that is more giving-centric, let's say, than taking-centric. I'd like to share with you a few stories that, for me, make this idea of happiness as vivid as these flowers, and has helped me find happiness in the most unexpected of places. On September 3rd of 2014, I spent 12 hours in a hospice care facility with my sister Debbie as she lived out the remaining hours of her life. Our conversations unfolded much as you would expect them to. We talked about our lives, that we lived together, and our lives that we lived apart. And we concluded that we were consumed, far too much consumed, with trying to get ahead, trying to tread water, and less time really looking into ourselves, trying to understand how our lives have been blessed. The time for reflection allowed us to slow down and to really look deeply at those aspects of our lives that gave us the greatest pleasure and the most joy. So it was in a hospice care facility that I was reminded that reflection can attract happiness and help us find happiness in the most unexpected of places. So would you like to live a life of meaning or a life of happiness? Researchers have concluded that the happy life and the meaningful life do in fact differ, and that the surest path to a happy life is not through pursuing or chasing happiness, but by living a life of meaning. So what does a life of meaning look like? Well, for me, it's one where we are driven and motivated by our most cherished life values. It is one where we are less self-absorbed, self-indulgent, and really more inclined to pour ourselves into others and to bring others along with us on our journey to happiness. It's one where we have a very strong belief that we are significant and that our lives matter and that we are valued. I spent almost all my career working in nonprofit organizations, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've hired lawyers, doctors, accountants, engineers, other professionals who left their very successful jobs their very successful careers, because they had a hole in their life that they felt could only be filled by giving themselves to others and doing something significant, at least as they saw it, significant to the world. So it's in the workplace that I was reminded that living a life of meaning can attract happiness and help us find happiness in the most unexpected of places. So, how would you define your relationships? Are they like the ocean, very broad in scope, with great depth in terms of deep relationships versus casual relationships? Or are they more like a puddle, very little in scope, with very little depth? A longitudinal study conducted by Harvard University yielded two, what I believe to be unremarkable, but yet very powerful conclusions. One is that there are two pillars to happiness. The first pillar is love, the giving of it and the receiving of it. And the second pillar is the idea that relationships are the only thing that matter in life. And that without loving, caring, and nurturing relationships, we will be unhappy. Now, I worked in a shelter for homeless women and children for many years. And I'd look out the window of my office and I'd see these children out there playing, enjoying themselves, laughing, just loving life. And I thought to myself, how could that be? These children have really lived a very, very harsh and difficult life. But it occurred to me that these children were happy because their moms were nurturing and caring and loving. And most importantly, they could be depended on, even under the most difficult of circumstances. The children who were isolated, lonely, sad, fearful, their moms were having difficulty taking care of themselves, let alone taking care of the children. So it's in a homeless shelter that I'm reminded that relationships can attract happiness and help us find happiness in the most unexpected of places. Paul and LaDonna are a much admired couple from a New Mexico community where I spent 30 years of my life. They had a son named Sean who died at an early age unexpectedly. It's the kind of event that conjures up emotions that are very difficult and emotions that don't easily dissipate. During the eulogy, the funeral, which was held on a Tuesday, one of the eulogists said that we as a community really ought to dedicate Tuesdays as Gratitude Tuesday. And on Tuesdays we should post all of that for which we are grateful. This has been going on now for 6 years and continues even today. By posting that for which we are grateful, we are reminded about everything that we have and are less consumed by thinking about all of that which we don't have. Expressions of gratitude allow us to savor the most joyous parts of our lives. And expressions of gratitude are incompatible with negative emotions. So when we express gratitude, any feelings of hostility, sadness, anger, fear, whatever the case may be, seem to easily dissipate. So it's in moments of loss that I'm reminded that expressing gratitude can attract happiness and help us find happiness in the most unexpected of places. Researchers have suggested to us that we are most happy when we give than when we receive. So think about it. Chances are pretty good that when we give, we are being as much selfish as we are selfless. Now, I'm sure that examples abound for you of times when you have given, either during the holidays or trying to pay it forward or doing some random act of kindness. And during that time, you know how you felt. By giving, we feel good about ourselves. We think more positively about ourselves. Our brain releases endorphins that gives us what I would call a helper's high. I participate in a project called the Angel Tree. I don't know if you all have done that or not. But the Angel Tree is a project where I purchase gifts for children of incarcerated parents. And for me, it's a 2-for-1. I know that the incarcerated parent feels happy because his or her child is getting something from them during the holiday season. And certainly the child feels happy because he or she is receiving a gift. So it's through the Angel Tree Project that I'm reminded that giving can attract happiness and help us find happiness in the most unexpected of places. So here's my call to action to you. This is what I would like you to do. I want you to commit yourself to living a life with purpose and meaning. To take time out of your day to reflect on your life. To develop an ocean of relationships that have great scope and great depth. To fill your day with expressions of gratitude. And to live a giving-centric life as opposed to a taking-centric life. If you do, I think you too will attract happiness. And maybe like me, find happiness in the most unexpected of places. Thank you.